And we are live Tuesday Talks. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is time for Tuesday Talks with John Robinson. If you are a regular, you know the drill. I need to hear from you. I need to make sure that I'm not just talking to a bunch of deaf ears here. So if you can hear me loud and clear, if you can see me okay, I'm on kind of a weak internet signal here. So this broadcast may not even be getting to you right now. If it is getting to you, let me know. Drop a comment. Give me a thumbs up. You know the drill if you're a regular. It helps me. Hey, there's Peter Lou. Good to see you, Peter. Perfect. That must mean he can hear me, I think. Here's Andy coming in. He can hear me. Perfect, 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 perfect. We got Mr. St. Tony. Quality's good and sound perfect. Awesome. Hey, thanks, guys. I'm glad to have you here today. Hey, there's Mr. John George coming in live from, I believe, probably from Hillsboro, unless he's out somewhere in Germany or something like that. By the way, guys, feel free to let us know where you're watching from. So if you are out and about right now, if you're somewhere rare and exotic, somewhere it's going to make us all jealous and envious, you can do that. But if you're just working from home or are you listening in at work, let us know. Always kind of fun to see where people are watching from. So I am going to be looking at the screen as much as I can. I'm kind of in a funky setup here. This is not my normal spot. So, hey, there's Peggy. Perfect, perfect. Peter says he can hear us. He's coming watching from PDX. Very cool, from the Portland area. So guys, if I look like I'm looking down, it's because I'm trying to get all my configuration here done. So John George working from home today. Right on, right on. Okay, I have a show today that I want to go through some stuff that is going to be Peggy, I cannot see you. No, I cannot see you. That's not how this works. Unless you are live streaming to me, Peggy, I won't be able to see you. But this is the technology is probably available. I don't have that part figured out yet. So I want to talk today about the potential rate drop. And obviously, sometimes these shows are not exactly evergreen. In other words, we're going to talk about something today that may, if you're watching this later, may end up being something that's old news. But at least as of today, the information we're going to talk about today I think is pretty pertinent. It's pretty important, and it's pretty pertinent to what we do. This is a show, obviously, for the most part, for people that are either actively involved in real estate investing or they're considering getting in. And so, what we're going to talk about today is really about the interest rate cut that's been announced. It's all over the news right now, at least in the investment world and the world of finance. There's talk right now about interest rates being cut by the Federal Reserve. Now, if you don't know anything about the interest rate or anything about the Federal Reserve, anything at all about the central bank, that's okay. This is not going to be a boring show about all of the intricacies of how those things work and really even what those things are. I assume you have the internet and you can probably go out and figure out what the Federal Reserve is, what the central banks are. You can figure all that stuff out yourself. What I want to talk about today, and I got my notes here in front of me, so pardon me if I'm looking down a little bit, but what I want to talk about today is about this announcement about the interest rates being cut, because the real big news is that, hey, the interest rates have been high, at least higher than they were, 2018, 2019, 2020. Interest rates 2021 were fantastic. It was amazing. Everybody was loving it. And then, of course, with COVID and then with the economy and, certain administrations and some of the things that they did or didn't do, long story short, the interest rates went back up, up, up. Inflation's going up as well. And there's been a little bit of a stagnation in the real estate market. And that's, of course, the business that we're in. Tuesday Talks about real estate. I call it real estate investment conversation. So we try to keep this thing real, try to keep it interesting, try to keep it pertinent and applicable to you. And as you probably know, the interest rates being higher than they've been in a long time has had a negative effect on the market in this regard. Okay, in this regard, the negative effect that's been had in the market, the real estate market at least, is that it's been harder for retail buyers who, at the end of the day, retail buyers, retail consumers are who really drive the market, right? And so the retail demand is high still. The inventory is still low. right? So you'd think, hey, there's no problem. But the problem here is that in America, and I've said this for a long time, and I'm going to keep saying it, as American consumers, I'm going to lump us all in here together, we tend to purchase or to buy based on the monthly payment, not necessarily the overall price. Okay. Now, if you're watching this today and you're like, that's not me, that's not how I do it, I buy based on price alone. Okay, well, then I'm assuming that you must have some kind of a surplus of cash, or you have ability to get financing for very cheap. And so you're able to just buy based on overall price. And when you can buy outright, it's kind of like going down to the car dealership, when you go shopping for a vehicle. If you're walking in there with, $80,000 of cash in your hand, then you can probably get a pretty good deal on a new vehicle, right? Just by saying, hey, this is the price I'm going to pay. And you'll go back and forth and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, with cash is what? Cash is king. Okay. But for the most part, people in America, and I would say maybe even worldwide, but for the most part, especially people in America, we as the consumer market, we buy on the monthly payment. We buy on affordability, right? Somebody put in the comments, we buy on the payment, right? Americans buy on the monthly payment, not on the overall price. And so what's happened, because of the interest rates being so high, it's driven up, naturally, the interest rates being as high as they are, and housing being at an all-time high as far as cost of housing in America. What's happened is it's caused the market to really pull back. At least the consumer market has pulled back. Why? Because the housing prices in America have, the monthly payment on those homes has been out of reach for most people. Okay, now we're talking about in very general terms here. I know that there's exceptions to everything I'm saying, but I'm just saying in a general sense, interest rates being higher has meant that most people can't afford that monthly payment. You're going to want to go out and borrow, on the average median income and house with the average, median household income. You go out and you finance a $430,000 purchase on a house that's, new or newish, or at least, something that fits what your needs are. That monthly payment at today's interest rates is so much higher than the monthly payment was in 2017 or 2020, or even in 2021. You were still seeing some interest rates for mortgage loans being around, 3%, 3.5%, 4%. And so the news about interest rates dropping potentially as soon as tomorrow, today's Tuesday, obviously Tuesday talks, potentially as soon as tomorrow, the Federal Reserve is set to meet again, and there's almost like 100% expectation that it's going to be announced that they're going to drop the interest rates. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to, first of all, if you think the interest rates are not going to drop, then I'd love to hear from you why. But I think we all generally agree that the interest rates are pretty much set to drop, right? So most people understand that the interest rates are going to drop. There's been a lot of talk about this for quite a while. And, there's a lot of, the big announcement today was, hey, the federal cut is here. The rate cut is happening. But I'm going to ask a question. What does that actually mean for you and I? What does that mean for you and I? What does that mean for us as investors? And the answer to that question is, of course, going to hinge on, well, what does it mean for consumers? I'll give you an example of why I think maybe some of you haven't been able to connect the dot. Why does the consumer market affect what we do as investors? Okay, well, first of all, if I buy an off-market house, like I'm supposed to go look at one maybe later today, I've got one to look at tomorrow here in the Portland market. I'm here in Portland today. This week, we're getting ready for our PDX REI Group meetup this coming Thursday night. I hope you're going to plan on joining us. If you're anywhere in the Portland, Vancouver market, you should be there Thursday night. I'll have more about that at the end of the show. But let's say I go look at this house tomorrow, and it's off market, meaning it's not actually listed for sale yet. And there's a situation where you have an older person who is needing to move. They're having some serious health issues. The family has kind of come together, and they're wanting to help out. Family lives out of state, and so they're trying to help the best they can, but they really need to work with somebody local. And so here I'm going to go, and this lead was brought to me. I'm going to be going and looking at this property tomorrow. More than likely, I'm still waiting to get an answer back from the family in Los Angeles. And so as soon as I get the green light, I'll go over there. I'll take a look at this house. I've already done a little bit of research. Let's just say on this particular property, the house is worth, okay, meaning what the Zillow price or the market price has set as an expected value. Okay, they say the expected value of this house is about $385,000. Okay. By the way, you guys ever drink this Australian lemonade stuff? Yeah, it's good. Okay, so let's say I go over there and I go, okay, that house is probably worth about $385,000, but it's not worth that much until it's repaired, it's fixed up, and so I make an offer not at $385,000 or retail value. I'm going to make an offer at a significantly less, price point, right? Because I have to purchase it down here and then do the work that's needed to bring it up to this value here. And hopefully between my purchase price and what it costs me to get that property up to value, the parts of repairs, the remodeling costs, and then also the financing fees that I'm paying, right? Because to purchase down here, I'm still having to pay cash. And that cash is not my own money. What do I use? I use OPM, other people's money, right? There's other people in the world that have that cash. They actually want to put that cash to work, but they don't want to flip a house. They don't want anything to do with it. And so I put that, hey, there's Quentin coming on, Quentin the agent. Cool, good to have you here today. We're talking about are the prices is the market really going to be drastically affected by the interest rate drops? And so we're kind of going through a scenario of how the consumer market actually affects us as real estate investors. Okay, so I'm going to look at this house tomorrow in Portland. I've already done the legwork on this property. I've kind of seen what the value is. Finished value, full finished value. I have comparable sales within the last couple of weeks. One about 2 months old. Very similar houses, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. About 1,100 square feet, and I know this property and I know the area, and so I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, it's going to be worth, when it's all fixed up, when it's all finished, when it's ready to go to market, it's going to be worth somewhere between $385,000 to $395,000. Actually, interesting, I just got a text message from the seller's family at live here on the show. Says we're trying to set you up to get over there. The more information. She wants some more information. The in-laws are wanting. So anyway, that's live. That's happening right now. So that's a property I'm going to look at tomorrow. Okay, so that property, I know when it's all fixed up, it's going to be worth about $385,000. I'm going to obviously price a little bit low, but I also know that at $385,000, I have to purchase it low enough down here to be able to afford to put the money into it to get it fixed up, and then to cover the cost of financing the cash, right? Because if I'm bringing in, let's just say I make an offer. Well, some of you guys are real estate investors. I'll let you determine what my offer should be. Okay. Well, while I'm talking, I'll let you guys put the comments in the chat. I want to see how well you know your real estate market in the Portland area. So, but let's just say that I make my offer and I buy this property with cash. The seller gets moved out. They have cash in hand. They don't have to touch it. It's as is. All those things that normally happens. Well, now we take that same, now I own this property, right? And now I've got to go get it fixed up. Whenever I'm done fixing it all up and I'm going to put it back on the market, and I'm using this scenario of kind of the classic flipper scenario, right? But if I'm going to go fix it back up and put it back on the market, remember I'm shooting to sell it for around $385,000 because that's what I believe the property might sell for, right? And so when I put it back on the market, who's going to be my potential buyer? Who's the most likely potential buyer going to be? I'm not asking for their name and their hair color. I'm saying, who is it? It's typically going to be a retail consumer buyer, right? And so the retail consumer buyer market does affect what we do as investors, okay? Why? Because the retail consumer is the largest buyer group out there, right? They're the people that there's the most demand. And there's a lot of people that in the real estate world, in the world of investing, they might be able to go and finance it and keep it as a rental, but still, even their renters are going to be kind of retail consumer renters. So the retail consumer market does have a direct effect on what we do as investors, okay? Would you agree with that? Drop a yes or a no in the comments if you agree with my assessment there. So retail consumer buyers, do they affect the investment buyer, real estate investors, or is it like, no, it has nothing to do with it? I obviously just told you what I think, but I'd love to hear what you think. Okay. So I'm looking down at my notes here. I'm obviously like in a different place. So yeah, Quentin says, yes, sir. It's absolutely right. Okay. Quentin knows what's up. He's in the game. So he's the agent. He's living in Portland, Oregon. Peter Lou says, yes, perfect. Okay. You guys are smart. And that's why we're all here together, because we're smart. We're trying to learn together. And we're trying to grow together, right? Okay. Now going back to my comments when I started out is we have the Federal Reserve is announcing that there's a very high likelihood that they're going to cut rates tomorrow. Could be as soon as tomorrow, possibly Thursday. And so in light of that, in fact, let me go ahead and see if I can pull this on screen real quickly. Peggy says heaven, yes, that's right. Okay. Let me see if I can pull up this article. I'll share the screen with you guys. Give me a chance to, I'm gonna have to pull this up, and hopefully you guys won't mind my messy browser, but let me know. Can you guys see that all right? Everybody see that okay? Can you see? Let's see, put that on there. Yeah. Okay, cool. So here's this article. What the likely first rate cut of 2025 means for Americans. Okay, so this is just a couple of hours ago. Federal Chair Jerome Powell announced the first rate cut of the year. Federal Reserve likely to announce the first rate cut this week. Fed meeting follows soft job. Okay, so on and so forth. Okay, so the Federal Reserve is meeting for the 6th time this year. Every previous meeting, they opted to hold rates steady, but that's set to change. Wednesday's decision is a sure thing, but a lot of people are saying they estimate it's a near 100% chance of a cut. Okay, now here's my question for you. Okay, my question for you all is, will that rate cut have a significant effect on the housing market? Okay. And I want to answer that question in a few minutes, but before we do that, I want to ask you, what's your opinion? Drop your comment in the chat, and I want to know, do you believe it's going to have a significant effect? Okay, Quentin says no, and I actually tend to agree with him. I'm going to tell you why in just a minute, but I want to hear what other people think. Okay, let me know. Do you think it's going to have a significant effect on the housing market? Quentin, if you're feeling froggy and you want to jump in and give us some more information, I'd love to see your thoughts on it. But I'm going to be sharing my thoughts in just a minute. I'm pulling up my notes here. John George says direct impact on loans such as SBA loans or variable HELOCs that are tied to the prime rate. Fixed rate mortgages, not so much. Man, you guys are smart. I got such a smart audience here. John George, you're a smart dude. And Quentin, you're a smart dude. I think that Peggy says no. Yes. Oh, yes, it's going to affect. Now, Peggy, I'd love to know your thoughts. Why do you think it's going to affect the consumer buyer market significantly? And I'm not saying it's not going to have any effect at all. I'm just asking, is it going to have a significant enough effect to where we, as real estate investors, as real estate professionals, are we going to feel the effect? Okay, that's the big question, right? Because the consumer, what we do is directly related to the consumer market. So I would say, I actually think that it's not going to have a significant effect. And I want to tell you why, but I also want to give you guys a chance to chime in. Let me know what you think, okay? I want to keep this thing going today. And I want to also just kind of get a little bit of traction here with my notes. So give me 1 second. I'm checking you guys' comments, pulling up my notes here. Like I said, not in my normal spot here today, so bear with me as I have a little bit of looking down here. Okay, now before I answer the question of why I think that the announcement about tomorrow's rate cut isn't going to necessarily have a direct effect, or at least a significant effect, at least anytime soon. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about mortgage interest rates versus the federal interest rate. Okay, so the federal rates. Peggy, Peggy says buyers will wait until the rates go down. Yes, okay, that's true. But if the rates go down, the Fed says, hey, we're dropping rates, does that mean there's going to be a rush? Because I think what's happening right now is there's a whole lot of people saying, oh, awesome, okay, cool, finally. I saw one article that said, hey, home buyers that have been on the sidelines waiting for rates to drop, get ready to watch them jump into action, okay? And my thought is, okay, why would they do that? First of all, you should know this, and I'm just assuming you probably do, but if you don't, you should know that the mortgage interest rates, like John George was saying, I'm going to pull up his comments again. The mortgage interest rates are not the long-term mortgage interest rates, like the 30-year rates, right? They're not directly tied to the federal fund rate. Okay, so the federal rate, the announced federal rate that's supposedly going to drop tomorrow, that rate is typically known as like overnight bank-to-bank borrowing. Okay. And I don't want to get, like I said, you guys can go look up that information yourself. I don't want to make this show boring. Okay. Some of you are thinking it's already boring. I don't want to make it any more boring than it already is. In other words, I'm not going to go into explaining what bank to bank and overnight and the federal, all that stuff is. You can go look how the Federal Reserve and the federal central banking works in America. But here's what I do know. Whenever they talk about dropping the rate, that has literally no direct correlation to long-term mortgage interest rates. Okay, long-term mortgage interest rates. Now, like John said, it might mess with or at least affect some of the adjustable rate mortgages, right? It might affect SBA business loans. It might affect some HELOCs and things like that. But the long-term 30-year fixed rates, they're connected more to the treasury yields. Okay, they're connected to the bond market. They're connected to some things that have more to do with less volatility. And so I want you to understand that with inflation going up, and it's still going up, with the job market being as soft as it is, with unemployment still rising, and maybe not as much as it was before, but it's still going up, I don't necessarily think that this announcement about a rate cut is really much cause for celebration for us as real estate investors, because of the fact that what we do, how we do business, is connected to the consumer market, and this isn't going to make a huge impact on the consumer market. Okay, listen, the announcement about tomorrow's rate drop, it does not mean that suddenly housing is going to be more affordable for the retail buyer. Okay, it doesn't suddenly unlock a bunch of affordability, right? Inventory, first of all, is still pretty low. Okay, now I see Quentin, the agent. He's in Portland, Oregon. I'd be curious to know if he knows anything about the local market, and if he can maybe drop in comments like, what's the inventory look like in the Portland market? I know the inventory is higher than it was, but it's still historically low, right? There's still a lot of demand for housing. There's still a lack of availability. And remember, the people that have those interest rates from 5, 6 years ago, right? Those 2018, 2019, 2020 interest rates of 2.75, 3.125, even as low as 4%. Those interest rates that are being held by those owners, they're not looking to get out of that payment and into a 6% or even a 5.5% interest rate, right? Payment, right? Because remember, I said Americans buy on what? Americans buy on the monthly payment, not necessarily on the overall cost of the house. And so I think it's a little bit naive to think that suddenly we're going to see this big surge in buyers hitting the market and just like suddenly it's not going to make a huge impact on that monthly payment. Now it will for some, right? We get that. And some people are like, hey, we've been renting or we've been waiting for long enough. We're just going to have to just take what we can get. So certainly you're going to have some, but I don't think it's going to have a huge effect in the market. There's another thing about this. And I think that it's interesting that in this article, let's see if I can pull that up again. I'll pull this up and show you guys this article. If I can do it, and if it doesn't work, then you guys will have to let me know. But I'm going to share the screen again and see if we can pull this up. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, here's this article again. Now, this is what's interesting, and I was reading through this earlier this morning, and with all the announcements, so on and so forth. But look at this. This is not Stephen Cates, a financial analyst at Bankrate, says it won't be a sign of celebration or economic health. And this is interesting. This is part of the reason why I actually agree with him. He said this is not a victory parade over conquering inflation. This is potentially making a cut because the economy is what? Faltering. And that's not necessarily a good thing. In other words, he's saying they might be getting forced to do something just to get give a little bit of a bump in the economy to loosen up some short-term financing and short-term spending, because of the fact that the economy is not doing as good as everybody wants it to be, right? It's certainly not where it needs to be. So it's also interesting that he goes in and says this. I believe it's, yeah, look at this one right here. A single rate cut won't, and that's the key, right? A single rate cut will not have a major impact on housing, auto, or credit, okay? Because of the fact that 30-year fixed mortgages tend to move up and down alongside the federal, even though they do, that the rate factors like inflation and investor behavior, okay, that's a big one. Investor behavior is based on investor confidence. It can have a major impact on borrowing costs, okay? And so what he says is that a September cut won't immediately cause rates to fall simply because some of that has already happened in anticipation of the actual event. And so that's actually what I wanted to talk about too a little bit today. There's already been some rate cuts for the mortgage market, for the mortgage rates, not necessarily because it was directly connected to the Feds dropped their rate, and so the mortgage rates dropped too. It's because it's like, well, okay, they're going to have to do something, right? And so we know they're going to drop a little bit, so we'll kind of get ahead of the curve. And there's already been some lowering of 30-year mortgage interest rates, so I don't think we're going to see a significant drop anytime soon, unless there starts being some systematic rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. In other words, they do one in September, they do another one in November, they do another one in February or whatever, right? And so I'm just curious from you guys, and I wanted to ask this today. Do you think that I'm just being skeptical and just being, a negative Nancy? Sorry, Nancy, if you're on today. Or is it more like, hey, this is actually, we need to be wise about what we're doing. And the reason why I think we need to be wise about what we're doing and not just overly optimistic is because for us as investors, we tend to make our money as investors on what? On the purchase, right? We have to buy, my example, the house I'm looking at later on, the example is from here, if it's 385,000 potentially on the market today, I've got to buy low enough to be able to not only afford to be able to put all the money into it to get it fixed up, and then also cover the financing fees of 10, 12, sometimes 15% interest. I've seen some flippers are paying, right? I've got to be able to afford to pay all that and then pay my realtor and then pay closing costs again on the sale. And then also account for the fact that after I do all that, what if the market dips a little bit and now instead of being worth 385, a couple of properties sell close by the time I go to list it and put it on market in 2 to 3 months from now? What if I have some comparable sales that show that other houses in the area sold for 365 and 375? Well, now I've lost what at today's value, I think it's going to sell for. I've got to account for the fact that it might actually drop, the property prices and value might drop again by the time I actually go to put it back on the market. Does that make sense? You guys give me some feedback on this if this is making sense. I hope this is actually helpful. I hope this is informative for you guys. And if you're here as just kind of a regular retail consumer, or maybe even a realtor or somebody that's kind of out there dealing with a lot of retail type of folks, hopefully you're learning something here, and this education is helping you understand why investors price things the way that they do. Okay, cool. I'm seeing some feedback here. Sherry says yes. Peter says yes, it makes sense. Miguel says sure is. Okay, perfect. I want to make sure that whenever I come on here on these Tuesday talks, that it's actually giving you guys value and helping you, because I don't want this show to just be me talking for 45 minutes to an hour. I want it to actually be kind of a little injection of either knowledge or some motivation or a little bit of help coming alongside you in your real estate investing efforts. And I know everybody's at different places right now. Some of you are just kind of getting started. Some of you are working full-time jobs while you're doing this. Some of you are already full-time in real estate. Hopefully we kind of cover something for everybody. So if that makes sense, and you understand that all the hype right now about the federal interest rate, the Federal Reserve cutting the rates, it may not necessarily be like translate into super good news for us. then my next question is, and in the last few minutes we have together today, I want to ask you a question. Then what should we be doing as real estate investors? What should we be focusing on? Okay. And the question is designed to get you to think a little bit and to get our minds off of the hype. And by the way, I want to say hype as though that everything that's going on in the news is just hype. There's a lot of crazy things that have happened here, even in the last week. And we understand that there's a lot of stuff in the news right now. There's a lot of tension that's being vied for, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in this country. And I don't want to just be completely ignorant of that or ignore that. But what I do want to ask is this: in your day-to-day life, in your real estate investing efforts, in just living life as an individual person, there's only so much that you can personally do or affect in the world. So I'm going to ask you this question that you don't have to answer, although you could if you wanted to, but what is it that you can actually do on a Tuesday afternoon, for instance, that actually moves the needle at all? Okay. And I don't want to say in the sense of in the world, although every one of us and our efforts and or our lack thereof does have an effect, right? It affects either our children, it affects our loved ones, it affects the people that are depending on us, it affects the market when enough of us are doing the same types of things. So I don't want to make it sound like you're insignificant and you don't make a difference. I'm not going to say that at all, because I don't believe that. But I do know this: there's a lot of people that are so caught up in the news of the day. They're so caught up in the tension and the emotion and the turmoil that they're missing out on doing the things that they could and should be doing that actually can have a tangible, noticeable, even felt effect. Felt meaning like it actually, you can sense, you can see, you can actually note and track the fact that it made a difference. And so I should ask you this question again, just to kind of circle back and see what I'm getting at. What should you be doing as a real estate investor? What should you be focusing on? Should you be focusing on all the news and all the craziness in the world? Oh my God, what's happening? And is it going to be civil war? Was it actually, why did he say this and who said that? And well, no. I don't think we should be focusing on that. We can't be totally ignorant of it. We can't pretend like as if we don't see it or we don't know it. But is that what we should be focused on? I would say most of us maybe would agree that that's probably not a really healthy place to put our focus and our attention, right? Okay. So my next question is, what should we be focusing on? Should we be focusing on interest rate cuts? Is that, Johnny, you're doing the show today, and talking about this. Well, I'm not focusing on this, but I'm just asking you, what should we be focusing on? Okay. And I'm asking this on purpose because I want to get you guys thinking about some of these things, okay? I'm looking at something real quickly. I'm just wanting to pull up this quote. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. Where is that? Well, I don't have it in front of me. I thought I had it, but I didn't have it. Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you. What should you be focusing on? I'm looking at the comments. Anybody comment back? What should we be focusing on as real estate investors right here, right now? Should we be focusing on interest rates? The reason I bring that up is because, a lot of people that are sitting on the sideline, they're not doing anything. You know why? Because they're waiting for the rates to drop. Now, that might actually be necessary for a retail consumer buyer, right? Maybe a retail consumer buyer says, I can't afford to go out and buy a property at today's interest rates, so I'm just waiting on the rates to drop. Okay, that might be a legitimate excuse for a consumer buyer. Okay, but what should we be focusing on? Should we be, as real estate investors, as real estate professionals, should we be just waiting for rates to drop and hoping that eventually consumers start buying again? Miguel answered here. He says we should focus on our end goal, being proactive rather than reactive. I could not agree more, Miguel. Thank you for that comment. Now I'm going to follow up and ask that, but what exactly is our end goal? Okay, what is the end goal? Because remember, focusing on something that is generalized and kind of vague I want to focus on just being making a positive impact in the world. Okay. Yeah, but what does that actually mean? How does it actually play out in your life as an individual? As a real estate investor, what should you be focusing on? Well, I have a couple of thoughts. You guys want to hear my thoughts on this? Anybody want to know what I think you should be focusing on? Drop a comment and let me know. Okay. Sherry says focus on activities that will move one's business forward, that will move the needle most. Okay. Absolutely. Investors got to invest. Lenders got to lend. Absolutely right. Okay. Miguel says, yeah, he wants to hear. Okay. Perfect. Here's what I think we should be doing. I think we should be focusing on, and this is my personal opinion, and I just want to say this, this is a disclaimer. This is my opinion. I think we should be focusing on making the needle move in our real estate business by doing the things that real estate investors know how to do, and that actually has a tangible, if I can use the word, felt effect in the market. Okay. So Peggy says we should be focusing on affordable housing. Okay. Again, that's so vague, so general. Like there's big developers that are focusing on affordable housing. Probably not everybody in here is ready to do a $40 million project, right? So maybe we need to get a little more specific about what we're trying to do. What I mean is I think we should focus as investors, as real estate professionals, we should focus on doing the things that have the most positive impact in the areas that we actually understand and can do, and that actually affect the market. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean this. With interest rates as high as they are still, and even with the announcement, I don't think they're going to drastically drop, okay? Then we have to be aware of the fact that, and by the way, and with the job market still suffering, and with the fact that there's a lot of people out there that aren't necessarily keeping up with inflation. There's people that are being laid off. How about here in the local Portland area? The big announcement is, of course, over the last couple of months, we've seen some massive layoffs by Intel. You think that's going to affect the local market? I think it will. I think it will. I think it already has. I think some of the effects haven't been felt yet, but I think it's going to have a significant effect. Okay, so here's what I think we should do. I think we should be focusing on helping the homeowners who are getting ready to lose their house because of the fact that they cannot afford the monthly payment. Okay, what exactly does that mean? How do we help them? Well, there's this thing called creative financing. Have you guys heard of it? I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm just saying creative financing is such a valuable tool to use in today's market, in a day and age, in a time when the interest rates are so high, okay? And so because of the fact that you know how to use creative financing, or at least you have access to those that do, that would be myself, that'd be multiple others in the PDX REI group community, because of the fact that we actually have the ability, maybe some of you don't have the ability to go out and jump into a $40 million affordable housing project. But could you learn how to find homeowners who are behind on their mortgage payments, they're going into pre-foreclosure, and could you find a way to work with them and work with their lender so that you could actually get a foreclosure stopped? Could you do that? I'm going to answer that question for you. Yes, you could. You could absolutely do that. You say, well, that's not really anything I've ever looked into, and I don't know how to do that. That's not what I said. I said you could learn how to do that, and it's actually much more simple and easy than you probably think it is, okay? I don't mean to say it's easy like as if there's no work. I'm just saying you're supposedly working on real estate investing, right? Why not work on the things that you can actually affect and get into possibly some deals where you're able to help the homeowner, help them keep from losing the house to a foreclosure auction, help them by putting some cash in their hand so they actually can land somewhere and get started again without, starting from, total zero or below zero. Put some cash in their hand, get a property that has a great interest rate from yesterday, and see what you can do to try to make a little bit of money on that, right? Use some private money, use some Sherry Moore says, let's do it. Okay, Sherry Moore is a good one. She's got access to funds where she can actually fund the entry fee to get into these types of deals. Okay, guys. Peggy Stevens says pre-foreclosures, creative financing. Absolutely. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. There's no reason why, as real estate investors, we should just be sitting on the sideline waiting for the interest rates to drop for us to be in action. Okay. Now, I'll say this also. Maybe pre-foreclosures and creative financing is just not your deal. Okay. Well, then you should focus on making very, very safe offers, cash offers, because cash is still king, right? Focus on making as many safe cash offers as you can in the market that you understand, in the market where you know you have buyers, in the market where you know there's still demand, and see if you can get lock up wholesale deals or deals for you to flip yourself. But make sure, please do me a huge favor, make sure that you're offering making offers that you can actually back up. Okay. Don't just be out there making offers and locking up properties and then pulling out because you're like, oh, that was actually too high. Make sure you're making good offers up front. Okay. Kevin Smith says this is a good thought. A good acquisition is a good acquisition no matter the market. That's exactly right. In other words, we say we make our money on what? On the purchase. Okay. So again, my illustration of 385 up here, what does my offer need to be if the ARV, the after repair value, is 385? And I know that I'm going to have to put probably at least 50 into this property to get it to be worth 385. What should my offer be? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You guys let me know in the comments, okay? Yes, so there's so many things that we could and should be doing. And if you guys are like, you know what, I'm just really not ready for this, I'm not sure. Miguel says $240,000. Okay. Miguel, that'd be a really, really great offer price. I think that's something that could work because what is that? 240. We're going to put 50 into it. So that means we're going to be about, and yeah, Miguel says that maybe, right? Obviously, I'm just using this scenario as an illustration. So if it's worth 385 when it's all said and done, it's going to cost 50 to get it up to 385. Well, then if we start at 240, then we add 50, right? That puts us at 290. Okay, and then we got realtor fees and financing costs. Of course, the real answer is depends on what your margin needs to be, right? But I would say 240,000 would be a safe offer. Again, assuming that we're not going to spend more than 50 grand and we have the financing available, ready to go, lock it up. You can get in and get these deals done. A lot of times a flip deal depends on how fast you can actually get the thing done and get it back on the market, right? So, yeah, Peggy says it's my deal. I'm a deal finder. Okay. Peggy, go find a deal. Let's do it. You're a deal finder. Go find us a deal. I've been waiting for you to bring a deal, a real deal, and something we can actually talk to the sellers on for a long time, Peggy. So let's go. Let's do it. I'm all about it. I want to help you out. I want to get you into a deal, but we've got to focus on the things that we can actually do, the things that we can actually affect. Creative offers are still very, very useful in this market today. Okay. So having said all that, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to be sharing this coming Thursday night at the PDX REI Group Meetup. I'm going to be sharing what it is that I'm doing. I'm going to actually have it on the screen. I'm going to show you some of the conversations, what I'm doing to actually help homeowners right now in today's market, and how I'm locking up deals. I've got one right now in Utah, southern Utah. I've got two in Idaho. I've got one, probably two by the time we get done with the rest of the week. Probably by Thursday night, I expect probably two offers here in the Portland market. There's a lot of opportunity for being able to help homeowners and make good fees, whether you close on it yourself or not. You guys can make really good fees on these if you do all the work and you lock them up and actually get them sold to an end buyer like myself. Okay. Now you want to be very, very clear that you do it right. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in the PDX REI Group Meetup this coming Thursday night. So I just want to say, if you haven't actually signed up for that yet, if you have not actually locked in your spot, then I want you to do that because it's very, very important that we know how many people are coming. Okay, so we always have people show up that didn't tell us that they were going to be there, right? And I hate to say it, like everybody's welcome, but it makes it much more difficult for us to be able to know like who to feed and what to expect whenever we actually don't have you guys RSVP. So please, please, please make sure the RSVP for that. In fact, I'm going to pull up this let's see here. I'm going to pull up the link. I'll just drop it here into the chat, into the comments. Let's just see if I can do this right now. Ladies, let me know on your end if that comes through. And give me a thumbs up or a yes, no. That's a big, huge link. I don't know if you guys can actually click on that or not. But that's the meetup.com link. Of course, we have the Facebook community, PDX REI group. We have that in the details there too. So put the word out, invite people to come out to this. I would love it if you guys could help us kind of get the word out about the Tuesday talks that we do, about the PDX REI group that we do. You guys are the best tool for marketing, because if you guys get value out of this and you've liked and subscribed and all that stuff, I'm assuming you've already done that. Then the next thing you do is you can actually just copy the link and share it. Put it up on your timeline, tag some of the groups that you're in, say, hey, I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope you guys are getting value out of this like I am. But make sure that you tell somebody about the PDX REI group meetup. We meet every third Thursday at 6 p.m. We have a really great space right here in Beaverton, Hillsboro, and we are looking forward to being there with you guys. Oh, this is nice. Sherry says, food is nice, but it's about the education. That's right. So I just figured a long time ago that food makes it easier for people to come, because, you know, if it's Thursday night, you got off work, you don't want to run and grab something. So we try to feed everybody. But we have featured vendors. We have them come in. We have a lot of great education. We do networking. But the main thing is, like I said, making sure that you're understanding what's going on in the market, what it is that you should be focusing on, what it is that you can actually help people with and move the needle with tangibly. So that's what we're going to be talking about. If you guys have any questions, right now is a great time to post them. I would love to hear your feedback on this today. I don't think that the market's going to change significantly. In fact, I think it's probably, this is me, again, I'm not a negative Nancy. I don't think the market's going to get a lot better anytime soon, okay? Now, if something drastic happens, if they revamp the entire financial system, then maybe there will be something that gets rolled out. And of course, that's very possible with the big push to get us all on the digital, financial system. So I believe all that stuff is coming, but I believe it's probably going to be a lot worse before it gets better. And then even whatever is better is presented, I don't know that it's actually going to be better when it comes to our privacy, when it comes to control and us being able to maintain sovereign control over our own money and our own choices. I think that we're headed in the wrong direction overall. But the good news is I know how the story ends. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you know, then you know, okay? So I know how the story ends. I'm not worried. I'm not fretting. I'm not necessarily, pulling my hair out or biting my fingernails, but I am aware of the fact that the market's going a certain direction. I don't want to be waiting for the market to correct or to suddenly come back before I take action. So what I'm doing is I'm actually helping homeowners, doing this every single day, every single week in multiple markets. And you guys can be a part of that too, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Most people actually don't value what they have and what they know enough. And I say most people, I'm saying a lot of people could actually help. And I think there's a lot of people in the real estate space that could and should be doing what they can in this particular area to make an impact, because we can help homeowners. Guys, I've been there before. I've told you the story before. I'm going to go into this a little bit more on Thursday night, but I've been the person on the receiving end of helping someone helping that knew more than I did, okay? You guys don't have to know much to know more than the average consumer, the average homeowner. And so there's a lot of people that are really struggling right now to make payments. There's new pre-foreclosures that come on the market. Some of you guys get the announcements all the time. Be part of the solution, okay? Come Thursday night, find out what I'm doing. We've got a workshop coming up in October. It's free. We're going to hopefully have as many people as possible registered on that. Tess says, I have a pre-foreclosure in Emmett, 2 acres, 8-minute drive to the hospital. Tess, that's music to my ears. You and I are working on some cool stuff in the Idaho market, southern Idaho. So that's actually really great. I love hearing that. That must be something you chased down recently. So we will definitely have to have our follow-up conversation. Cool. So you guys, I hope to see you on Thursday night. Make sure you register. Did anybody check the link? Did it actually work? I know I posted the link there. Does this thing actually work for anybody? Somebody let me know before I jump off. Okay. Let me know if that works. If that doesn't work, go to PDX REI group on Facebook. Go to PDX REI group, and you guys can actually look up the free under that, where it's the tabs at the top. Let's see here. Test. I think we've got the link here for the meetup in the group. Yeah, Peggy says she gets a list every Monday. Ted says the link works. Perfect. Okay, good feedback, guys. I'm appreciating that because it helps me know if this actually is getting through to you. So I hope to see you on Thursday night. I hope this was valuable. If it was, give me a thumbs up. If it was like, kind of like we'd rather talk about, something more exciting, let me know. I love to hear the feedback. You guys tell me what it is you're wanting to talk about, and I try to give you the information that you're looking for in these Tuesday talks. But in the meanwhile, God bless. Take care. Get out there and do what you can. We'll see you on Thursday night. If you're in the Portland area, please do show up. Please make sure you're registered so we can make sure that we feed you. And we'll just keep on keeping on. You guys don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in all the news. Don't get caught up in all the worry and the anxiety. Get caught up in doing the things that you can actually do to help people. So, all right. God bless. Take care. We'll see you guys soon.